The house with the attic. I hadn't been to that house for nearly 10 years. It all started when I got a call from the realtor. "You should come by, the house is up for sale, but you're the last heir. We need your approval." My grandmother's house. A small wooden place with creaky floors and a roof that the rain drums upon like a musician finding their rhythm. I hesitated for a long time, but one crisp October evening, I finally decided to go. The wind carried the scent of fallen leaves, and the sky was grey, perfect weather for remembering something important. When I opened the door, that familiar smell hit me. Wood, spices, and a hint of time itself. Everything was in its place. In the hallway hung my grandmother's coat. It still smelled like her. I stepped into the kitchen. A cup perched by the stove, as if waiting for me. It had a crack, the very one I made when I pretended to be a chef as a child. And then I climbed up to the attic. My childhood was here. In every dust mote, in every beam of light that cut through the narrow window. On a dusty shelf were my old toy cars, slightly rusted. Under glass lay drawings I'd given my grandmother. She always said, "You'll be an artist, even if you're not." Then I saw a box, labeled with my name. Inside, letters I'd written to myself as a kid. It seemed my grandmother had been saving them. I pulled one out, the topmost. Dated 2006. I was 9. "Hi, grown-up me. Do you still love the rain? Have you stayed kind? Do you still remember Grandma's songs? Don't forget this house. It's magical. And if you ever feel sad, just come back. This place will always welcome you." I closed the box and sat down on the floor, leaning against a wooden beam. Through the roof, I could hear soft raindrops tapping on the shingles. Just like back then, when I drifted off to grandmother's stories. I don't know how long I sat there. I only remember feeling warm, as if someone were hugging me. In that moment, I understood I couldn't sell that house. When I stepped outside, it was getting dark. Leaves floated around me like dancers in a waltz. I sat in my car, started the engine, but didn't drive away immediately. I looked at the windows, the same windows that once glowed with light. And I smiled. The house with the attic stayed with me, and now I know for sure, some places never age. Love and memory live in them. The cafe on the outskirts. Been driving all night. My eyelids drooped, and the road blurred into a grey haze. Ahead, only highway and sky equally empty. I didn't know where I was going. I was just driving, escaping something, or toward something. Sometimes it was the same thing. On the shoulder, I saw a neon sign, "Cafe Quiet are open always." It looked like it had been there before the road existed. A small white cottage with a dark roof, its single window spilling warm light. I parked. Inside, it was warm. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman, grey hair in a bun, a thin scarf around her neck, eyes that watched but didn't judge. "Tired?" she asked. "Yeah," I answered without a thought. "Then sit." "Tea or coffee?" "Tea." No sugar. She went behind the counter, and I looked around. The cafe was empty, except for one man in a coat, staring silently out the window. Time stops here, you know, she said, placing tea before me. What? Everyone has places where time comes to a standstill. For some, it's a summer house, for others, an attic. For me, it's a roadside cafe. I smiled. Has it been like that for long? Ever since my husband left. She sighed. Since I stopped expecting someone to walk in just like that. We sat in silence. Outside, snow began to fall. Inside, the faint hiss of the teapot, the scent of cinnamon, soft clicks from the old radio. The man by the window suddenly spoke. I come here every year, at the same time. On the night she and I first came here. I turned. He didn't look at me, just at the darkness outside. And does she come? I asked. No, not in years. But I keep expecting her. As if on cue, the radio played an old tune. I recognized it. It was the song my mother used to listen to on our drives to the countryside. Suddenly I was flooded with memories. Her laughter, her hand on the wheel, me dozing on her shoulder in the back seat. I realized why I'd pulled in. Sometimes, to remember yourself, you need to stop in places like this. Quiet places. Places that just wait, even if they don't know what, for you. I finished my tea. The woman smiled and said, if you ever get tired again, you know where to find us. We're always open. I nodded. When I stepped outside, the snow lay soft, like a blanket. I didn't hurry to start the car. I just stood, listening to the silence. Some cafes don't have an address. They appear only when you're truly lost. And they vanish once you remember who you are. To be continued. A letter from another world. That winter, the snow fell early. The city felt slowed, footsteps softer, sounds muffled, even the air whispering. She worked at the post office, a small branch at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, almost never busy. A cozy nook with the scent of paper, old mail bins, and coffee from the machine. Her name was Lena, 34. She lived alone. Mornings, work, tea with honey, a book, routines so quiet. No tragedies, no highs, just stillness. One day, sorting mail, she found a strange letter. The envelope was thin, almost translucent. The address, no street, no number, just, for the one who feels something isn't right. She smiled, maybe a prank. Someone's forgotten story. She opened it. Asterisk, you ask questions you don't voice. You live rightly, but not truly. This letter is from a place where you are real. We remember you singing, laughing for no reason, believing in the impossible. Come back. Not literally, but inside yourself. Start with one step. Buy those pastries you haven't allowed yourself since 2012. Then another step. And another. With love, your other self. Star. She read it 3 times. It felt strange, like the letter was coming from within her. She didn't throw it away. The next day, she did buy those pastries. She ate one on a bench by her work. For the first time in a long time, not thinking about should, not counting calories, not analyzing. She just nibbled. And laughed. Out loud. Alone. A week later, she found a second letter. Same envelope. Different handwriting. We see you took the step. Well done. The second step, call that friend you lost touch with because of pride. Don't overthink. Just write, "Hi, I miss you." She wrote it. Her friend replied in 2 minutes. It went on for nearly a month. Letters arrived weekly, not by post, but as if they'd simply materialize on her desk. Each one with a task. Each one unlocking parts of her that had been silent. In one letter was written, "Soon we won't write anymore, because you'll begin to hear yourself again." And that's the main thing. Don't lose that voice. We are always with you. We are you. She didn't open the final letter right away. She held it sitting by the window, watching snow fall. She felt everything would change now. Not fast, but certainly different. Sometimes other worlds aren't magic or portals. They're just reminders that you can become yourself, even if you've lost your way. And under that snow, whispering the letter's words, she fell asleep. With a light smile. Just like when she was a child. The room that wasn't there. It started with a letter. No return address, no stamp. Just a folded piece of thick paper tucked neatly into the crack of her apartment door. On it, a single sentence written in careful, almost delicate cursive. You left something in the room. It is still waiting. Oya turned the note over. Nothing else. No name, no clue to who had delivered it, or when. Just those words, triggering a tug in the back of her mind, a tension like déjà vu without the memory. She should have ignored it. Tossed it away, as anyone would with cryptic nonsense. But she didn't. Instead, she stood there, staring at the letter while the evening sun pooled amber across her floorboards, until the light began to fade and the words on the page almost shimmered. The next day, Oya wandered. Not consciously seeking anything, but her feet carried her toward the older part of the city, the one filled with narrow alleys and cobblestones so uneven it felt like the earth remembered a time when things were less straight and ordered. She wasn't sure how long she'd been walking when she saw the building. It was wedged between 2 taller structures, all but invisible unless you happened to glance at just the right angle. A townhouse, 3 stories high, built of dark stone with windows like black mirrors. On its gate, half rusted, a small plaque, "Room by invitation only." She stood there for a long time, letter in hand. Though the paper should have been at home, she found it in her coat pocket again, as if it had slipped back on its own. The ink had faded slightly. The words were harder to read now, as though they were vanishing the longer she waited. She reached out and opened the gate. Inside, the house was silent. Not the silence of emptiness, but the kind filled with listening. The air was cool, laced with the scent of old rose petals, parchment, and rain on stone. Shadows moved in places shadows shouldn't, not threateningly, but deliberately, like something trying to remember how to be still. She climbed the stairs without thinking. Up, then up again, until she reached the 3rd floor. There was only one door. No number. Just a mirror. It didn't reflect her properly. She could see her outline, yes, but her face was blurred, and behind her, she saw not the hallway, but a room. A room with a table, a chair, a single teacup with steam curling up like breath, and a clock on the wall with no hands. Her fingers brushed the doorknob. It was warm. When she stepped inside, the air changed. Heavier, yet familiar, like memory made tangible. The chair scraped softly as she sat a day. The tea smelled of linden, apples, and something unplaceable. Childhood, maybe. Then he was there. She hadn't heard him enter. He simply was, sitting across from her, hands folded, watching with calm, dark eyes. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet. You came back. Did I leave? You forgot. That's not the same. She frowned. Who are you? Someone you knew. Someone you'll remember. If you drink. She hesitated, then took a sip. The taste opened something in her chest. A warmth, a sharpness, a flood of impressions, a hallway of endless doors, a field lit by moons not her own, laughter in the dark. This place isn't real, is it? He smiled gently. It's real enough. It exists where lost things gather. What did I leave here? He leaned forward. A version of yourself. The one that asked questions without fearing the answers. The one who dreamed without apology. She felt tears rise, sudden and unbidden. Not of sorrow, but recognition. Why now? Why send the letter? Because you're ready to remember. Some part of you always knew where to find us. She looked around. The teacup, the chair, the mirror on the door that now reflected nothing at all, and the clock, still without hands, but ticking, faintly. Can I stay? He shook his head. No, but you can return. Whenever forgetting feels too heavy. The room pulsed once, like a heartbeat. When Olia woke, she was back in her bed. The city was quiet. Rain tapped gently on the windows. Her coat hung by the door, and in the pocket, the letter was gone. But on her bedside table was a teacup, still warm, and a note in familiar cursive. You remembered. Come back anytime. She smiled. And somewhere in the city, behind a gate no one else could see, a door waited with a mirror that no longer blurred her face. The Clockmaker's Attic. It was said that at the end of Harvest Street, past the row of crooked lanterns and shuttered shops, there stood a house that no one remembered building. It leaned slightly to one side, like it was listening. Its windows were always dark, and its front door, painted the color of stormy skies, was never seen opening, only closed again. Inside lived an old clockmaker named Ezra. He was not often seen in daylight. Sometimes, late at night, passers-by could hear the soft whir of gears, the click of metal against wood, and faint music that seemed to come from somewhere above. But no one dared knock. It was understood that whatever happened in that house was private, sacred, even. One rainy evening, a girl named Myra arrived at Harvest Street. She wasn't looking for clocks. She was looking for answers. She had received a note slipped under her pillow in the middle of the night. It read, "When time no longer makes sense, follow the sound of the second hand." And so she had. Her life, lately, had begun to fracture. Hours stretched and collapsed. Days repeated. Dreams bled into waking. Something was wrong, and deep down, she knew that someone had broken something that should never be touched. She knocked. To her surprise, the door opened instantly, as if it had been expecting her. The hallway was long and smelled faintly of cedarwood and oil. There were clocks on every wall. Pocket watches dangled from nails. Grandfather clocks lined the baseboards. None of them showed the same time. Ezra was waiting in a tall chair at the back of the room, hunched like a folded bird. His hands were stained with brass and ink. His eyes were sharp, grey, and very tired. "You're late," he said, without looking up. "I didn't know I was coming," Myra replied. He gestured to a spiral staircase that climbed far higher than the house should allow. Upstairs. The attic. That's where it started. Each step creaked like a whisper. As Myra climbed, she saw clocks become stranger, some shaped like birds' nests, others with faces made of spinning glass. Time itself seemed to stutter as she ascended. The attic was warm, filled with ticking, soft and constant like a heartbeat. At its center was a single clock unlike the others. It stood 10 feet tall, carved from a dark wood that shimmered when she didn't look directly at it. Its face had no numbers, only a single black hand, moving in erratic pulses. "This clock," Ezra said, arriving behind her, "is the reason you're here. It was never meant to be finished." "What does it do?" "It records the moments people forget. The seconds lost between blinks, the time that slips when you speak but forget what you were saying. Why would anyone build that?" Ezra's voice turned quiet. "Because someone wanted to steal them." Myra felt cold. "Someone is taking pieces of time." He nodded. "Someone, or something. And now it's leaking." The tall clock shuddered. "You were born near the moment it began to crack. That's why you feel it more. You're attuned. Can it be stopped? Only if the lost time is returned. You must go into the mechanism." Before she could protest, the clock's hand froze. A seam appeared in the wood, and the face slowly opened like a door. Inside, darkness, humming. Ezra handed her a pocket watch. "This will keep you tethered. But be careful. Not everything that lives in forgotten time is friendly." Myra stepped through. What she found was not what she expected. Corridors made of chimes. Fields of frozen conversations. Shadows shaped like memories, looping endlessly. She walked through scenes she half remembered. A birthday where no one came, a dream of running, a goodbye never said. She began to gather them, one by one. The missing seconds. The stolen glances. The almost said truths. When she returned, if time had meaning there, Ezra was waiting. "You've done well," he said. "But this is not the end. The clock is repaired, for now. But it will call you again." Myra nodded. She felt older, sharper, as if the missing parts of her had returned. Back on the street, dawn was just beginning to warm the cobblestones, and far above, in the attic no one believed was there, the tall clock began to tick again, steady and whole for now. Thank you for being here. May these stories warm your night. Sleep well, and see you soon.